bonus video for y'all this week. We got a Mormon genius. Okay, so we have the great Von Braun. We LDS do not believe that Christ is created. Not true. We don't believe in creation ex nihilo. Also, we do not believe in modalism. I don't know who told you that we do. Fathers. Well, Joseph Smith in his earlier teachings in the Book of Mormon clearly taught that the Father and the Son are the same person. That's modalism, okay? And yes, you do believe Christ is created. Multiple prophets and multiple passages have, or including Joseph Smith himself in the King Fallow Discourse, has said that they're eternal regress, many gods. Okay, so Christ is created. Now you guys don't believe that because you're trying to rebrand into some weird mainstream form of Mormonism, which is totally stupid. So I responded, I'm created, but nothing cannot be created. So what I meant here is that, so your gods are uncreated, but they cannot use nothing to create things. So that's basically a fallacy. And here's what he says. We believe Christ eternally existed. Same with the Father. We believe we always existed. Therefore, we do not believe in creation ex nihilo. We're out of nothing. Okay, well then, how many gods are there? And if you would say that, I mean, I always get astonished when Mormons say this stupid shit, but man and God have the same ontology. That is demonstrably false, okay? This is where he's hinting at. And here's what I said. Well, yeah, obviously that's not what your prophet originally taught, that Christ eternally existed. But I call out the fallacy, okay? And here he is. Yes, they did. Well, notice how he only quotes D and C, but there are other parts that you're not quoting, where there are many gods before gods, before gods, before gods. Why don't you quote those verses? Of course he's not going to do that. Not sure how eternal existence is impossible. Well, it's possible, but they should have the ability to create ex nihilo. Because if that's not the case, there's no property of divine. What is divine property then? Which is totally stupid. I think Mormons have this really shallow understanding of logic. Now, they think that eternal beings can just progress. But the deal is that if they're eternal, what's the point of progressing? This is the stupidest thing that you'll ever really get into in your life. What principle is driving eternal beings to progress or to form a three unity? So if that's the case, that would mean the principle that is making three gods, three eternal gods, triune in a way, is superior than the gods. So you're not even worshiping the real shit. This is stupid. Here's what I replied. Your prophet taught many times eternal regression of gods. So he's cherry picking. Okay. So if three gods exist ex nihilo, and ex nihilo is impossible, that's what I was talking about. But look at this genius here. Okay. I think he thinks he get what I'm saying. You misunderstood. I don't think Christ or anyone was made out of nothing. They've always existed and were not created. Well, that's because they precedes making something, right? Or, excuse me. Yeah, precedes, right? There is a difference between created out of nothing and not created at all, but always existed. Well, if that's the case, they should be able to create things out of nothing. If everything already existed, then you have no universals. Okay. Here's my critique. Your brain's not working properly. That's obviously the case. If you do think your gods are the eternal principle, the cause of creation, then they have to possess the ability to create without anything. If not, then their attributes of uncreated is then attributed to everything else, therefore destroying that attribute and the principle, which is a contradiction. Now, Mormons, this one happens to be an insane Mormon. Okay, most Mormon would basically be stumped here, because they would say they believe God is the eternal principle, but also can't create from nothing. If gods are uncreated and eternal, but also can't create from nothing, then you're positing gods who are both metaphysically necessary yet ontologically dependent, which destroys itself. Okay, that's a contradiction. That's what Mormonism teaches. Also, just by the many gods, uncreated idea supposes a unity principle, which I already mentioned in the video, which is above all the gods. And it limits God's behavior. So he really went that route, by the way, just letting you guys know. That's why polytheism is the most ridiculous nonsense in logic in human history. And the most prominent philosophers would rather be atheist than polytheist, because it destroys the foundation of logic. That's why. Thus, your gods are not the ultimate source of reality, which destroys your ability to ground anything. By that principle, extended, your gods won't be able to ground reality either. How can your gods even ground reality? How? They've always existed. Okay? And there's a bunch of other principles that precedes them, that are superior than them, that they have to obey to. And they can never actually interact with that. Well, if there is truth, then truth is never achievable. And if that's the case, that's what you guys believe, then that explains it. And yeah, it's a special pleading. It's called a special pleading fallacy. Okay? They're eternal, but deny that gods can make things from nothing. Okay? Allowing gods to exist without cause, but denying gods the ability to cause without a precondition, which is a fallacy. Not that fallacies ever matter to Mormons. And here, let's see what this genius said. When you say, if you think your gods are the eternal principle, the cause of creation, we reject that premise of a first cause. There's therefore no conscience. So he literally went the route of God don't ground truth. Gods don't ground truth. Oh, look at this. Yes, that means that there are laws outside of God that God has to follow, right? He just admitted his gods cannot provide you any sort of grounding for truth. So you just destroyed your religion, doofus. His God is limited, yeah? Eternal beings are limited, eternally. Guys, I mean, look, I bring Robert on because he and I happens to, got to a point where we're good friends. I mean, you don't think I can destroy his arguments, right? Literally, they're so low tier. But I'm a moderator. I couldn't do that in the debate. But like this guys, come on. When you guys look at this shit, are you seriously, like, how can anybody with any sort of, I guess, brain cells even consider this religion? My God can beat up your God. What the fuck, dude? So why believing him? Among other reasons, my understanding of God gives a better explanation of the problem of evil than your God. For one. Really? How do you know what evil is? But you don't even know if your God has anything to do with that. So your God's gives you a better explanation of the problem of evil. Now, what might that be? Evil has eternally existed? I mean, seriously? Evil has eternally existed? I mean, that's the only two things you can go with, right? It's either he created, you don't like that. You don't like the idea that, I know you don't believe that God created evil, right? And we don't believe that, by the way. Now, he thinks that Orthodox and Catholics believe that, but no. But your only explanation is that evil has eternally existed. So, there you go. This is how stupid you are. Now let's look at this. It's the same critique I gave you. You just destroyed your whole religion. Your gods are submissive beings. They are not grounding principles for universals. Then you just admitted that all truth claims are fully subjective and impossible to ever achieve. He literally just admitted that he is delusional, and people who are in his faith are delusional. There it is. There are laws outside of God, and God has to follow. That makes it so he has limits. Therefore, he is not omnipotent in the way you might define. I await that my God can beat up your God remark. I don't even know what the hell that means. This guy is so far gone. I just wanted to show you guys the IQ of these people. And if you guys don't do anything about it, like I am, at least, calling them out whenever you can, right? I mean, imagine this level of IQ spreads through America. What do you guys think is going to happen? The idea that this is basically saying that truth can never be grounded. And makes sense with the Mormon religion. It's fucking bullshit. It's what it is. I mean, you have to go out of your way to think that the book of Abraham is actually a thing. And I mean, any of this is actually a thing. The amount of gymnastics for you to play to say that Native Americans rode horses. Come on, man. But there you go. I wanted you guys to see it for yourself. This is not the God of the Abrahamic faith even. He believes in a limited eternal being. Eternity is limited. Okay, so he is not, and he totally misunderstood me too. If you think your gods are the eternal principle, yeah, the principle that grounded metaphysics. So they reject that their God is their gods ground eternal principles such as metaphysics, ethics, feelings, morals, knowledge. Their gods doesn't do that. Okay, so can you maybe tell me how does your God knows these things? Isn't that just hilarious? How does your God interact with what's true and what's not true? He can't, because you have a system that is above eternity, in which no one knows anything about. You are nihilists. You're a bunch of fucking nihilists. This is the same thing I argued with the dumbass LJ, and he thinks I'm joking. He thinks I'm being goofy. He laughed. He thinks it's funny. But this is what you guys believe, right? Your gods are not the eternal principle that grounded logic, metaphysics. Okay, so I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you guys. This is, I mean, it's like 1 o'clock over here. And I'm still awake dealing with mentally ill patients. You know, if one day I become the US president, I'd send every single Mormon to Epstein's Island. And they'll never, ever be allowed to leave. But anyways, that's all I have for y'all. Next week, we got another Mormon video. And a bunch of fun stuff coming the week after that. And I hope we have a great week. The reason I didn't post on Wednesday, I'm not posting on Wednesdays, because that debate was, I apologize, I totally misunderstood the intentions of both sides. I thought it was a blood sport debate, but it turns out just to be a discussion. So I released it early, and I'm finally going on a vacation this week. So next week we'll go back to regular posting. Thanks for sticking with me. You folks have a good day today.